Hey everyone, in this video we're taking a quick look at some gaming benchmarks on the new 2023 version of the HP Victus 16 with the RTX 4050. If you're interested in my full review of the laptop, make sure to check the end card or the description of this video afterwards. The specs of this version include an i5 13500H, the mentioned Nvidia RTX 4050 with up to 120 watt, which it will never fully use by the way, fast 16GB of 5200 MHz DDR5 RAM and an 512GB NVMe Gen 4 M.2 SSD. All games have been recorded on a separate PC at 1080p with a capture card to prevent performance loss while recording. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the benchmarks. In Cyberpunk 2077 I was using the high settings with DLSS on quality and activated frame generation, which resulted in an amazing average of 113 FPS and a very good 1% low of 74 FPS. As said before, I would absolutely play the game exactly this way with frame generation if I had an RTX 4050, to be honest. The game still looks really great and feels very smooth, though in some areas there are still some slight stutters if a lot of NPCs are walking around, like for example at this marketplace in the starting area, but overall it was a great experience. I was testing Hogwarts Legacy on high settings and DLSS quality at 1080p, which resulted in around 62 FPS on average with a pretty bad 1% low of around 15, caused by the well-known stuttering that can occur in this game. I mean, it's playable, but the frame times aren't really good. Though, as you can see, most of the time the VRAM seems to be sufficient. Of course, you could also use frame generation to get more FPS instead and smoothen the frame times a bit. And to be honest, if I was using an RTX 4050 laptop, I would actually activate it. And of course, you could tinker around with the settings a bit to get more FPS and a lower VRAM usage or cap the FPS at 60. In The Last of Us, I was testing medium settings with DLSS quality at 1080p and saw an average of around 85 FPS with a 1% low of 55, which is really perfectly playable. The latest patches helped massively, speeding up the shader caching and level loading times. Now, I didn't experience one single frame drop or stutter through my whole testing period. Though medium settings surely helped to avoid the well-known VRAM issues this game has. In CSGO I was using high settings and saw a very high average FPS of 314 and a 1% low of 124, which, if you watched some of my videos before, isn't a problem since you can't feel the relatively low 1% low FPS in this title. It's working perfectly fine and in my opinion it's definitely enough to play the game even on a professional level in my opinion. In God of War I was using the high preset with DLSS quality once more and saw an average FPS of around 94 FPS with a 1% low of 58. Perfectly playable, beautiful game, absolutely no complaints here. You would even get a stable 60 FPS without DLSS if you don't like upscaling technologies, though I really think that on a laptop screen you can't really tell the difference at all if you're not comparing screenshots. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I was using the very high preset and saw a nice average of around 74 FPS with a 1% low of 41 FPS. It's perfectly playable while having a very few minor FPS dips or small stutters here and there if you take a closer look at the frame time graph on the left. Though as you can see, the very high preset is bringing the VRAM to its absolute limit, so I couldn't guarantee that this wouldn't become an issue at some point in the game. Maybe the high preset would be the wiser choice then in the long run. In Apex Legends I was using low settings since this is the best way to benchmark it, as I was told by my viewers, and saw a high average FPS of 254 after removing the FPS cap with a 1% low of 111, which basically was because some loading issues in the beginning of the recording, so it would actually have a much higher 1% low as the frame time graph is very smooth and I didn't experience any stuttering whatsoever. I guess this is perfectly playable and once more fitting for more professional gaming. In COD Warzone 2 I was using the simple preset with DLSS quality, which resulted in an average of 115 FPS and a 1% low of 68 FPS. The game was playable just fine from the very first moment and gameplay was super smooth. It's not 144Hz material, but I guess it's still good enough for some more motivated gaming. Some very few dips or microstutters appeared here and there, but overall the game did get quite some optimization love over the years since it has been released. Okay, you have to know up front, forgive me for my noobish gameplay since I am not playing Battlefield 2042. Okay, now with that out of the way, on the low settings with DLSS on quality, I was getting an average of around 130 to 140 FPS, depending on the map, with a 1% low of around 65 FPS. As usual, Battlefield takes at least a few minutes until it starts to run smooth without stuttering, but then it was playable just fine. In Red Dead Redemption 2, I was using the famous optimized settings by Hardware Unboxed, which I can highly recommend as they provide great visuals combined with a very good performance on most systems. If you want to use them, search for Hardware Unboxed RDR2 on YouTube. I combined these settings with DLSS on quality once more and saw a super high average FPS of 109 with a good 1% low of up to 70 FPS. Perfectly playable like all the time. Almost no dips or stutters at all, even in the city. Super smooth. But then again, Red Dead Redemption 2 has been released on PC almost 5 years ago now, so it should run fine on a new gaming laptop, right? The overall gaming performance is more or less identical to other RTX 4050 laptops, though the fact that this RTX 4050 is using the maximum wattage and that it is combined with a fast i5 surely places it at the upper area of similar laptops. It will definitely be faster than its Gigabyte G5 counterpart. Overall, the Victus 16 can play any existing game out there with pretty high FPS if you're not running into VRAM trouble, since these small 6GB VRAM are becoming a big problem on higher settings in more and more AAA games. Though all eSport titles are perfectly playable on high to ultra settings as of now. While we're at it, I highly recommend checking out my RTX 4050 review video over here, if you haven't already done that, that is. And also the video in which I talk about the wattage issue of the RTX 4000 series. And by the way, these are the 3D mark results I achieved on the HP Victus 16. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this quick video, consider subscribing for more benchmark and laptop review videos. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye and tschüss.